give you an explanation,
Yes.
but not as an agnostic position.
I do accept that religion can give you an explanation.
Yeah,
whether you
brilliant.
believe in that explanation or not is.
But
is
do you
up
not
to
think? But do you not
That's
think?
faith,
Yeah.
I think.
But do you not think within your human nature you have that crave to have an explanation,
Yes.
right? Yeah, brilliant.
I do. I have the craving to have an explanation.
Yeah.
But I don't accept the conclusion without enough evidence to believe it. I am as engaged with you
Brilliant.
in trying to find it.
Brilliant.
But for me, it hasn't been found yet, and for you, it has been found. Like, I'm in the process of finding. I feel like I'm earlier in the process of finding it.
Yeah.
And maybe my generations from now, my progeny, thousands of years from now, will find it.
Yeah.
I am actually, and I think some people might have trouble with this, but I am actually comfortable not knowing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Why do you feel comfortable not knowing?
Because I still, I find a lot of motivation from deriving purpose for myself. Okay, lacking a God.
Okay.
Like, what is my purpose?
Good.
I think I can be motivated every day by a desire to treat people well.
Okay.
By a desire to give back to my community, my family, my friends, and to grow every day. And maybe contribute a little bit more to these questions we don't know the answers to.
I mean, Islam has no problem what you just said, because we as Muslims, we believe that we believe in the concept of fitrah, which is natural disposition to recognize there's the creator, and universal knowledge that everyone knows good and bad. Like, for example, if you see someone bashing up a child's head, right? You know from your natural inclination it's wrong, right? Yeah. So Islamically speaking, we have no problem. There are some universal knowledge that we all have, because God has given us this some sort of a blueprint in our heart, right? So we've got no problem with that.
Yeah.
But if you're saying that this universe, there is a fit for purpose, then I would say that it is important for you to know if there is God or not. I think it's important. Otherwise, what you're giving me an alternative option, which is this just came by itself, or this came from nothing.
Yeah, I can't quite say that. I can only say I don't know where it came from. And this is, I ran into this problem.
I see where you're coming from.
I ran into this problem with a Christian friend over lunch 2 weeks ago.
Okay.
He had the same thing. He's like, I don't understand how you should have a universal truth that you would want me to believe.
Yeah.
Just like he has a universal truth in the belief, his Christian belief, that he wants me to believe.
Okay.
And he couldn't get past the fact that I am actually uncomfortable. I can't say to you it came from nothing. I don't know what it came from. It could have come from Allah, but I don't know.
Okay, so Islam says this, right? Islam says that God has created us with a purpose, right? So the purpose of our creation is to worship Him alone, right? Now, you know from your natural inclination, if I was to give you a simple example of a phone, you know from your natural inclination that you know that this phone did not pop from nothing, correct? This phone didn't create by itself, right? So you know from based upon your natural inclination that there is the creator. Even though you haven't seen the creator, but you just know there's the creator. Why? Because you look at the features of the phone, you look at the software, you look at the applications, right? So this is innate within your nature, that creation itself is evidence for the creator. If you allow me to call the human beings as machine, we're far more complex than this phone, which is also a machine.
Yeah.
So what about the creation of the heavens and the earth?
No, it's a very compelling argument.
Yeah.
I mean, whether there's cruelty or whether you call it beautiful or cruel,
Yeah.
it is created, and the creation is a bit evidence of a creator. But the question is, what is that creator?
Good question. Very good question.
And you're saying there's some sort of everything we see is the natural world, right?
Yes.
But there is something supernatural. I
don't like to call it supernatural. I'll just say, look, there's the creator who's unlike his creation.
Okay,
Yeah?
fair enough. Yeah, I'm fine with that, right? I can't ascribe things to that. I can't ascribe anything from facial features to desires to cruelty or benevolence or omnipotence or not. I can't ascribe anything to that.
But if you can,
I believe it might be there.
Yeah.
Like I said, what was before the Big Bang?
I don't believe in the Big Bang.
Yeah, okay.
I don't.
I'm just
I don't
saying,
use,
if you were to, what was before that? Even an agnostic can't answer that.
Yeah, but Islamic perspective, we believe that God is the first and there was nothing before Him, and God is the last and there's nothing after Him. So how can something come from nothing?
But isn't that sort of tautological, right? Because you could also say, well, I mean, this feels like a bit like an immature argument.
No. Nothing's immature. Go on.
I mean, what came before God, right?
Okay. Good question.
Right, and so if you were to say that something can have no before and no after, then couldn't you say the Big Bang equally could have no before or no after?
But you have to understand.
It's just devil's advocate sort of argument.
No problem.
You know what I mean?
No problem. the definition of God that we provided to you is God is uncreated, right? So it's like, for example, if I was to ask you who created this phone, you would say, what's your name?
Nat.
Nat, Raihan, nice to meet you. Nat,
Nice to meet
right?
you.
Nice to meet you. Then somebody asks you who created Nat. What's that got to do with the question who created the phone? It's got nothing to do.
Okay, but you're choosing an endpoint. You're choosing to end it at God, and I could just say, well, who?
But God is not. But God is not within the chain. So for you to ask who
Right.
created God is an invalid question.
I understand where you're coming from. That's the supernatural
You're
thing.
the
There's
problem is,
natural thing that has a before and
I want to
an
make
end.
this very clear. A lot of people give you this infinite regress. You must have heard this before, and I don't believe in this,
Yeah,
right?
I think that's fair.
Because we don't say God is within the chain. You know, I don't subscribe to the first cause argument, kalam. I know a lot of Muslims use this. I'm against this. What I say is, it's impossible to have infinite regress of dependent things.
Yeah.
So, for example, what is dependency? Look, I'll give you the difference between causation and dependency, right? The causation does not require a volitional will. It doesn't require. For example, if you have a fire, what's the cause of the fire? The burning, right? Are you going to say that the burning has consciousness? No. A cause doesn't necessarily mean consciousness. But if we were to say that you can have an infinite of dependent things, but ultimately you have to depend on someone that's independent.
Yeah, I agree with that.
So we say God is a
Yeah,
samad.
it's
Allah is a samad. There is the independent,
Yes.
self-sufficient. So I want to make this very
Yeah,
clear.
so-
We don't subscribe to Thomas Aquinas arguments or first cause argument. I don't
okay,
subscribe to
okay.
that.
No, I mean that's also like compelling too, right? That
Yeah.
you can't infinitely go back in the dependency tree and then always
Yes.
ask what was before. What
Exactly,
Was before.
exactly.
And that's your name for something that exists outside of that is Allah.
Allah,
right?
Allahu Samad. Allah, the independent, the one whom everyone depends upon, but he doesn't depend on anything.
And my name for that would be something I can't describe.
No problem.
Supernatural, right?
No problem. No problem.
But then my bigger problem with all this, so I
Yeah.
can accept that there might be something outside the chain, but my
Yes.
bigger problem with all of this is why ascribe so much orthodoxy around this thing about which you know
Very
nothing
good.
about.
Very good question. Very good question. If I was to ask you this question, right? God is the creator. He's the creator of the heavens and the earth. He created us, right? If I was to ask you a simple question, who would be able to set the purpose of every creation? So if I was to ask you, somebody created this phone, correct? Is there a purpose behind this phone?
Yes.
Is there a reason why he created the phone?
Yes.
Right. So do you not think that as complex as this phone, do you not think that God, as the creator, will give us a purpose?
Okay, but even if we accept that he has given a purpose to the universe,
Yeah.
who are you to interpret that purpose?
Very good. So if I was
Like,
to...
because there's billions of people around the world and they all interpret this purpose very
Good.
differently.
But who dictated for this phone to be created in the first place? The creator? Apple. Okay, fine. So that's Samsung. But that's a company, but there's a manufacturer, correct?
Yeah.
Right. So who dictated the manufacturer to create the phone? Nobody.
Okay.
Okay. So similarly, God, he is Al-Aziz. He's the Almighty. He's all powerful. He can do whatever he wants. That's his kingdom, right? So now you don't have a choice. The fact that this phone didn't have a choice for the phone to exist. Similarly, your existence. I'm assuming obviously you have parents, right? Did your parents choose you the way how you look like? No.
Yeah.
Okay. So what I'm asking you, what I'm trying to say to you, that look, God has given us a purpose.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we believe Islam says this basically. God created Adam and Eve, and He sends prophets and messengers with exactly the same message. Worship God alone, who is unlike His creation. Don't worship His creation, right? So God.
Don't worship his creation.
Yeah, don't worship His creation. Rather, you only worship the Creator.
See,
Why?
yeah, no,
Let me ask.
I find that very appealing.
Oh, good.
Like
Good.
worshipping the creation,
Right.
rather than whatever exists outside the
Very
creation.
good. The reason why I say this is that look, you know, you're a very handsome individual. Yeah, you're very good. Good-looking guy. Yeah. Everyone is built. Look at us. Yeah. No. I'm being honest. Right. Everyone is built. Right. This is what Allah says in the Quran. Allah says that was there not a period of time when human beings were not worthy to be mentioned of? So He's asking you the question. God is asking you the question that look, at one point you were nothing. Then what does Allah say afterwards? Allah says, "Inna khalaqnakum min nutfatin amshad." Indeed, we created you from a mixed fluid as a means of test for you to be tested, and He gave you senses of hearing and sight.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah. So this is from chapter 76, verse 1 to 2 of the Quran, right? So now God is questioning you that look, you didn't exist 100 years ago. Why all of a sudden did you exist? Why did your parents exist? Did your parents give you 2 eyes? No. So why is God worthy to be worshipped alone? Why? Because He created us alone.
Assalamu alaikum, brothers and sisters. Hope this video was helpful for you. This may help others too, so please consider sharing, and we will bring more videos in the future inshallah, so consider subscribing and you won't miss any. Jazakallahu khairan.